You know, everything that the Avos HaKadoshim, that the Avos Limais went through, we know that they were individual people. You know, there was a person, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and so on. But they also existed as the beginning of the Jewish people. And so everything that they went through in their lives was both something that they're individually going through personally, but also something that they're setting the stage for the Jewish people to go through. And so in this week's parsha, we have the first time that one of the Avos HaKadoshim really goes into Galus. That's really what we have over here, the beginning of Galus. Yaakov Avinu, as we know, land of last week's parsha, him and Esav are not getting along. He takes the brachas. Esav thinks they're rightfully his, and so on. So Esav is upset, and so Yitzchak Avinu tells Yaakov, "It's time to go. It's time to go to my old family. You know, your mother's old family. Go to the place of Haran, the house of Lavan, and over there you build a family. You'll get married. You'll have." Klal Yisrael. So we know that on his way there, the pasuk tells us that Yaakov Avinu takes a nap, he goes to sleep, and over there he has a dream. And the way Chazal explained that this dream was not just a simple dream, this was a prophetic experience. Yaakov Avinu was shown all the exiles the Jewish people would go through. He saw Bavel, he saw Parshas, he saw Esav, he saw Aragolus, he saw everything. And the reason why he was shown that is because his personal Golus, of him going to the house of Lavan, was, again, as I said, not just an individual experience, it was something for all of Klal Yisrael. And just as Yaakov Avinu goes into Galus and actually grows from it and makes his way back to Eretz Yisrael bigger than how he went, like the pasuk says that he went to the house of Lavan holding onto a stick. That's all he had, was just a walking stick. And he comes back with a whole mishpacha and family and huge flock, a whole malchus, a whole army. So too, what's being set up is the same thing with each and every one of us. We have to go through our Galus, we have to go to that place that's called Galus, but we have to have the confidence and the strength to know that ultimately we get out of it and we come out stronger than we went in. So let's understand. If the Galus is being established over here, if the first Galus is being set up as Yaakov Avinu going to the house of Lavan, so what does that tell us about the nature of Galus? Who is Lavan? Who is this guy Lavan? And why is it specifically in his house that the Jewish people, that Yaakov Avinu experiences his exile? Who is Lavan? All right, so let me share with you a story. They say this is one of the stories of Rabbi Nachman Breslover. Rabbi Nachman, he would say stories. They were not real stories. They were mashalom. They were parables, but he would contain very great lessons of Torah in these stories. So one of his stories is called the Chacham and the Tam, the simpleton and the sophisticate. So those are two characters that we have in the four sons on Pesach night. So there's the Chacham, the wise son, and the Tam is the simple kid, right? So usually when you think of it, the Chacham is like that's the kid that you want to be. That's the kid that you want to have. He's the ideal. The Tam is like, it's an Ebuch, you know what I mean? He's better than the Sheni de Elishol, but he's a Tam. This is the Ma'aser Rabbi Nachman said. He said there was once two Jews. They grew up. They were neighbors to each other. They grew up in very similar backgrounds, similar education. They're both smart, talented, good kids. They went to the same yeshivas, v'chulu, v'chulu. But one of the kids can be described as a Tam, and one of them as a Chacham. What does it mean, a Tam versus a Chacham? It doesn't mean smart versus not so smart. It means one was simple, pashut, just a pashut guy, enjoyed simple things, didn't necessarily overcomplicate his life. He was a smart guy, intellectual, but just simple. And then the other guy, the other Chacham, who's the Chacham? The Chacham is, again, the same level of intelligence, but just everything is overly complicated. Everything's overly complicated. This person puts themselves in like overly complicated situations, overanalyzes everything. He's a Chacham. These are two people. So, for example, Rabbi Nachman described how when they eventually left school and they went to their different fields of Parnasa, so the Tam, the simple guy, his objective was, I have a simple mission. I have to make a living for my family, that's all. So the opportunity arose, a situation came up where he had an opportunity to become a shoemaker. So he said to himself, okay, I'll be a shoemaker. It's not the most prestigious thing. Maybe I don't know what the ladder is. Where is this leading in my professional career? I need to make a parnasa right now. I have an opportunity to be a shoemaker. I'll be a shoemaker. Meanwhile, the Chacham, he also leaves school, but he already has a lot of degrees, you know what I'm saying? And he has to, for me to be a shoemaker, it's beneath my dignity. I'm a big Chacham, you know what I mean? And where is this? And if I take this job, it's probably going to lead over here and over there and over there, and 5 steps down the road, I'm going to be in a place that I don't want to be. So maybe he sits back and he's waiting for the best opportunity. This is how it goes. When it comes to a shidduch, it's the same way. The Tam, like, okay, listen, she's a nice girl, let's work it out, you know what I mean? And the Chacham, everything overly complicated. And so on and so forth, they have these lives. Until finally, Rabbi Nachman said one day the king of the country, for whatever reason, like he had his eye on these two, and the king sends a telegram, with messengers to each of these two people. And both letters say the same thing. The letter says, the king has been watching you for all your life, you know what I mean? He's been following you, and he would love to have the honor of meeting you. This is what a letter that he sends to the simple guy, and a letter that he sends to the Chacham. So the Tom, the simpleton, hears the letter, gets the message, says, wow, unbelievable, the king wants to meet me, I can't believe such a thing. I'm so excited. He packs his bags and goes and becomes a very close person with the king, happily ever after. What is the Chacham? The Chacham gets the same letter, and he reads the letter. He says, the king of the entire country wants to meet me. He says, let me read it again. He reads it again. He reads it again. He says, I understand something. Why in the world? He starts to analyze. Well, why in the world would the king want to meet someone like me? Who am I? I'm a nobody. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit smart, intelligent, and talented, but why would the king want to meet me? And he turns to the messenger and he says, listen, the king gave you this letter? He said, yeah, the king gave me the letter. He said, no. Listen to what I'm asking you. The king himself gave you this letter? He said, no, the king didn't give me the letter. I got it from my superior. Let me ask you something. Did you ever actually see the king? He said, what do you mean? I'm a mailman. How do I see the king? I never saw the king. Let me ask you something. Did you ever actually see anyone that actually said that they saw the king himself? He said, I don't know, my sviva, my group. I mean, we're mailmen. I don't know what. But I never saw anyone that actually saw the king. Says the Chacham, I'm estimating, I'm suggesting a possibility. There is no king. There is no king. All this is just one big joke. This is one big, illusionary system that was set up by, I don't know, this Elders of Zion, I don't know, whatever he said, that are running everything, just to trick people into thinking there's a king. There is no king. I've never met anyone that actually saw the king. You've never met anyone that actually saw the king. I estimate there is no king. Now, he thought about this more and more. He became absolutely convinced of this, to the point of where he spends the rest of his life on a mission of telling the whole world that there is no king. The Maisa goes on that eventually, obviously, there is a king, and the simpleton has to be the one to save the neck of the Chacham. This is the Maisa of Rabbi Nachman. It's an amazing thing that Dafka, when the king sent the letter as an invitation to the Chacham, that's Dafka when the Chacham began this whole thing in his head. Maybe there is no king. So Rabbi Nachman said, when it comes to life is complicated. There's a lot of sibuchim, there's a lot of chachmas, there's a lot of situations that are complicated. But if a person really wants to be able to connect to the King of all kings, the Rebbeinu Shalom is simple. What do I mean the Rebbeinu Shalom is simple? The Rebbeinu Shalom is very smart. But the Rebbeinu Shalom is described as Hashem Echad, one God, one, simple, Pashat. Achdusei Pshuta, unbelievably amazing, but simple. If a person wants to really have a relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom, of course you have to be with complications. Life is complicated, but there has to be a certain pashtus, a certain simplicity, that all that complexity is framed within. Give you an example, Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is described as what? Yaakov Avinu is described as an ish tam, a simple person. Yaakov Avinu is simple. He's not smart. He's not talented. Of course, he's smart and talented. But all the talent and all the sophistication of Yaakov Avinu, it all boiled down to simple things. Yaakov Avinu woke up in the morning and said, "Listen, I'm about to do. What is the purpose of me being alive today? Simple. It boils down to something very, very simple. To serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. Simple. Now, within that framework of simplicity, I have that basic, elemental, aleph-based mission. Now I can go and figure out what to do with my life in details. But it all comes back to one simple truth. Who's Lavan? If Yaakov is the simple one, Yaakov is the Tam, Lavan is everything is overly complicated. Everything is overly complicated. I mean, the whole story on a simple level, right? Yaakov Avinu goes to Lavan, I want to marry your daughter Rachel. 100%. Then it becomes very, very common. How can you do that? She's not older, and they trick the whole thing. And then they have a deal. He's working with them for years and years, and they make a deal that the Yaakov Avinu's salary should be this type of sheep, and Lavan agrees, but then Lavan backs out. It's not so pashit. I mean, maybe this type of sheep is not so great. Maybe on the other type of sheep. Complicated. This is the gullus of Yaakov Avinu. This is gullus. See, what's the definition of gullus? The definition of gullus is living a life that's overly complicated, that's not framed within simplicity. It's when a person loses sight of the most simple and basic things of life, of why we're here, who we are, and what we're supposed to do, and we become lost in the details and the complications of things that are not necessarily part of that Parshas. That's when we lose sight of ourselves, we lose sight of life, we lose sight of our direction, and that's darkness. That's called Galus. We're coming into a time, we're coming close to Hanukkah, right? That's what Hanukkah. What's the whole story of Hanukkah? How did Galus Yavin, the exile of Greece, how did that begin? It's an amazing thing. Chazal say that the beginning of Galus Yavin was one simple event. It was when a lot of rabbis at the time decided, as a request, the Greek king at the time was Ptolemy Hamelech, Ptolemy the king. He made a request from the Chacham. He said, we hear so much about your Tanakh, about your Torah. It sounds like unbelievable and very, very wise. Let's translate it into Greek. When it's in Hebrew, only people that read Hebrew, that know Hebrew, know how to read it. But now if you translate it into Greek, it'll be much more widespread. And a number of the sages agreed. And the Gemara says that moment when they translated Torah into Greek, that was the moment when darkness came into the world. That was the beginning of the exile of Greece. What's so tragic about translating Torah into Greek? You know what it is? When you take a Chumash and you open the Chumash, right? Torah is very complicated. There's a lot of ideas, and there's all different levels. And Rabbi, you have Reb Chaim Kanievsky learning something on this level, and another person learning something different. It's all very, very complicated. But you know what Chumash is? All the complexity boils down to one simple letters. That's it. And the same letters a little kid in first grade is reading, the same letters that a Navi is reading. It's the same thing. And when a person learns Chumash, you don't even have to understand what you're talking about. That's what's amazing about Torah Shebechsav, about the written Torah. When you go to Shul on Shabbos and you hear Kriyas Torah, or you just open a Chumash and you just read the words, let's say you don't understand anything. Are you learning? Yes. It's simple. It's complicated, but the complexity of Torah, of Chumash, it's packaged in something very, very simple. It's something that a little kid could understand, and even if you don't understand at all, the letters, the words of Hebrew have a significance, and that's called learning. You know what happens when you take Torah and you translate it into Greek? Now it's just purely ideas. And when it comes to just pure ideas, now it's complicated, and you understand it, you don't understand it. It's not packaged within something simple. The conflict between the Jewish people and the Greek Empire is the following thing. The Greek philosophy, the Greek Gullus, the Greek exile is one of trying to get the Jewish people to be thrown and to get lost in complexities. Maybe this, maybe like that, maybe like this, maybe like that. I'm not sure. And nothing is sure. Nothing is simple. And when the king himself calls you, you become so overly complicated that you convince yourself there is no king. What's Hanukkah? Hanukkah is the Jewish people's response to Yavin, which is, of course we acknowledge the world is complicated, and there's going to be a lot of complexity in life, and there's a lot of uncertainty, but at the end of the day, the way to thrive in that, the way to survive that, the way to get out of that gullus is to frame all of that complicated life becomes, the more you have to connect yourself to simple things, to things that you're certain about. To the extent that you're uncertain about certain things, remind yourself about how much you are certain about. This is called, in the Sfarim, Yishuv Hadas. Like, what's Yishuv Hadas? Like, to be peaceful and how is a person able to navigate like complex situations from a place of stability, right? I mean, if the person's like, himself in his own mind, like, thrown in a million directions, and they're not going to be able to have the clarity to be able to navigate the darkness. But when you're in a position of strength and confidence and security, and like, I know certain things, now from that position you can then navigate Gullus. You can get out of Gullus. The Gullus is Yaakov Avinu trying to hold on to his simplicity while dealing with a lover. And when Yaakov Avinu is able to do that, when he's able to deal with the complexities of dealing with a lover, but from a position of certainty, from a position of strength, from a position of Yishuv Hadas, of peace of mind, of tranquility, that this stuff is all complicated, but at the end of the day, there's much bigger things that I know for sure. Like, I know for sure I'm a Jew. I know for sure that my life has meaning. I know for sure that there are people that care about me. I know for sure that there are people that I care about. I know for sure that the Infinite One cares about me, that He loves me, and He's guiding my life. That's big picture. That's the biggest picture. Yes, so now within that framework, there are certain things I'm not sure about. That's what Hanukkah is. See, Hanukkah is an amazing thing. Hanukkah, how's the mitzvah of Hanukkah set up? The mitzvah of Hanukkah, the way it should be, is a what? It's like each person lights a candle based on each day it is, right? That's what it is. Like as the days go up, that's complicated. It's complicated. How many people are in the family? How many days you are? It's complicated. So Chazal, but it's amazing that Chazal set up that that's all true, but that's mahadra min mahadra, that's the highest things. But what's the basic? One candle per night for everyone, finished. Simple. On top of that basic building block of simplicity, now you could have complications. See, the whole yontif of Hanukkah is everything is stripped away to its most basic elemental point. Every yontif there's a mitzvah of like being happy, right? Hal and simcha. But every yontif, the joy is complicated. It's with food, it's with wine, saying certain things, not saying certain things. It's complicated. What is the simcha of Hanukkah? Simple. There's no meal, there's no nothing. We think of that as like, okay, it's shvach, no, it's simple. Just be happy, finish. There's nothing complicated. Because the whole yontif of Hanukkah is giving us the strength to be able. It's the yontif of Hanukkah. This is why that moment when Torah, when Tanakh, which is so simple and pashut and universal, and all the complexity of Tanakh fits in simple packages of letters, of aleph beis that little kids know. When the moment that was taken away from us and it was converted into just concepts, when the complexity was removed from its simple packaging, that's called Golus. That's the beginning of Golus. The Tikkun, what's our avodah? Our avodah during this time of year, as we come closer to Chanukah, is, I said, not to shy away from complexity. Life is complicated. The Rebbeinu Shalom is going to throw us into the house of love, and that's not up to us. What's up to us, what our avodah is that to the extent that we face these types of, tricky type of situations in the house of Lavan, to hold on, to that extent, to hold on to as much simplicity as possible. To remind it literally, to push it, even if it means to sit down in the morning and write down on a piece of paper everything that I know for sure to be true. Obviously you can't do that like literally, but the big things in life, like why I'm here, who am I, why I'm here, all that's huge. That's huge. And to that extent, now you're able to have a kli, you can have a vessel within which that complexity can fit, and you can have yishuv adas, you can have peace of mind. This is a definite, that's the Rabbi Nachman, first of all, also in the Likutei Moharan, Chelik Beis Siman Yud, he says that's the ticket of how a person gets out of Galus. It's with yishuv hadas, with tackling a complex situation with a peace of mind, with tranquility. And how do you do that? The only way to do that is to not allow yourself to get caught up in the complex question. Is to at least be up there. There's a part of you that's standing in firm soil, and from that from that position of peaceful calmness, of there are more things I know than I don't know about my life. Now I could go into the uncertainty and figure it out. That's why Hanukkah also, the menorah is positioned what? The menorah is about shedding light into the dark streets of this world, right? So you think, so why wouldn't Chazal make it that the menorah is lit in the street? Go into the darkness itself and light the menorah. We don't do that. Do it by the door or by the window. The point is to give light outside. So do it outside. Chabad famously does that, but that's not really right? You're not making the mitzvah like the mitzvah is in your house. Why? Because if you want to shed light on the outside and not get lost in the darkness itself that you're trying to illuminate, then you have to be firmly rooted in a place that's certain. That's what a house is. What is a house? A house is a structure that gives security to the many things that you own. Right? A person owns a lot of things. You have a stove and a couch and you name it, thousands of things. If a person moves, right, and like the moving company comes, and like you don't even know how much stuff you have in your house, right, until it's actually taken out, right? Like I can't imagine how did it all fit in there? Because when you just focus on the things, it's chaotic. What is a house? A house takes a million things, which is all chaos and complex, but packages it in something very simple: 4 walls and a roof. So dafka from a position of that simplicity, the tam, now you could go out and illuminate the world. Otherwise, the world will throw us into darkness. This is why Yaakov Avinu, even when he's about to enter into Golus, what does Yaakov Avinu say? Yaakov Avinu sets up a rock, right? And he says, when I come out of Golus, I'm going to make this base Elokim, the house of God. What is a house of? What is he making a house for? That's what a house is. It's all about Yishuv Hadas. It's all Yishuv Hadas. Let me end off with one quick ma'aseh. I think I mentioned this before. But one simple story that the Rebbe Rashab, one of the Rebbes of Lubavitch, so He was a very deep thinker, and one time he would get caught up in his own thinking, and he would like wander the streets, you know what I mean, until eventually he would wake up, you know. So one time he was wandering the streets, and eventually he got himself into, let's say, a bad neighborhood, you know, and a cop comes over to him and says, a rabbi, who are you? What are you doing here? And he's like, he wasn't, you know. I asked you a question, and the Rebbe like wakes up. He's like, I asked you a question. Who are you? What are you doing here? And so the Rebbe said to me, he said, what is the Tsar paying you? So, what is the Tsar paying me? He said, whatever he's paying you, I'll pay you double if you come to my house every day and ask me those questions. Who are you? What are you doing here? It's a simple question, and it has a simple answer. It has a very simple answer, but when you have the answer to that and you hold on to that, then you could deal with all the complexities of the streets of Lubavitch. You know what I'm saying? You could handle that if you have that certainty. Hashem should help each and every one of us. We should be zeicha to handle the house of Lavan, to be able to enter into the light of Hanukkah, to be able to have Yishuv Hadas, to be able to get out of this Golus, to be a Skol Tzedek, Me'er V'Meinu Amen.
Thank you, Hashem.